Yes, welcome in one and all. This is the Full 10 Yards at Betting podcast here with you again on a Thursday evening ahead of week 3. 2 weeks now in the books. Doesn't the NFL season go fast indeed? But we'll get right to the action today. But let's welcome in Adam, who I believe is going away for a nice little getaway with the missus, but he couldn't bear to leave us for just a minute. So he's decided to spend part of his holiday with us. Welcome in, Adam.
Yeah, not with the missus. She wishes. No, it's a lad's 40th. We're all old now, so a lad's weekend in Havar, where it's going to be thunderstorms for the entire weekend. So, taking my laptop with me, I may actually get a chance to do my preview after all, if we can't leave the villa. But no, looking forward to that. In a hotel at Manchester Airport at the moment, coming live from there.
Is that a thunderstorms as in the weather, or thunderstorms as in metaphorical group of English lads hitting Havar?
Yeah, quite possibly a bit of both. Yeah, if we can actually leave the villa, I think we've got tomorrow where it's nice weather, so that will be the messy day, I think.
There we go. And Liam, any what are you up to this weekend? Anything apart from watching the Chiefs win? Lose?
Well, I'm going to another country, but just to Wales, unfortunately. But I might have better weather than Adam is having in his country.
You might.
So,
what part of Wales are you going to?
Yeah. Well, we're just going to Cardiff to celebrate a mate's 30th / watch rugby, which is a sport that I hate, but I am going because they all love rugby. So, yeah, should be good. But I'll be more invested in the other type of throwing the ball around on Sunday, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the wrong colour. It's the right shape, but kind of the wrong. It's probably a bit bigger than an NFL ball, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be bigger. Yeah, but you'd be hard pressed to throw a rugby ball like quarterbacks do, I'd guess. But yeah, so yeah, should be good. Well, what are you doing this weekend, Tim?
You what am I doing? What am I doing? That is a good question. Not a lot, to be honest. boring. No, I was just trying to think. I was just going to say that some of the quarterback play so far this year. It does look like they're throwing rugby balls rather than American footballs. But
Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, he's barely throwing the ball, is he? But there we go. Let's get a bit of a recap from last week. Was a bit of an improvement. Liam was especially good with the 4 out of 6 and a over £6 profit on £1 level stake. So congratulations to you, my friends. I was 2 out of 6, but with 1 push, and then Adam was 3 out of 6 as well on kind of our primetime best bets, our best weekly spread, best total bet. Totals better than a touchdown score as well. Although my AJ Brown anytime touchdown score on Thursday night was there was actually one, but it was pulled back because of a Rashard Penny penalty. But there we go. We will try and do another couple of bets better this week, and we start off, lads, with Thursday night football. Giants travelling to, I was about to say Candlestick Park then, but it's Levi Stadium now, isn't it? 10.5 is the line, 1 to 6 there if you want to put your mortgage on San Francisco. Over under here is 43.5. I can't see anything other than a double-digit win for San Francisco. Saquon Barkley obviously ruled out. Ayuk is questionable, but I'm not sure he's likely to go. And then just the other notes for this game. Was Kyle Shanahan said that he regretted giving Christian McCaffrey 100% of the snaps last week. So as far as coach speak goes, he's a guy that I will listen to more than people like Pete Carroll, who's an absolute liar. I'd love if we could do like head coaches on films, like Pete Carroll in Liar Liar would be a good one, wouldn't it? Because he just all the crap that he comes out of his mouth is just lies. But anyway, that's a totally different podcast. I say I can't see much more than a very, very, very comfortable San Francisco win in this one. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's hard to look past that, isn't it? I don't think Ayuk will go. He looked in a lot of pain after he went down the first time against at the weekend. Can't remember who they're playing. But yeah, when he went down the first time, he looked in a lot of pain. He carried on through it. I don't think they need to risk him for this one, so I don't know why they would. And because of that, I quite like Juwan Jennings bets tonight. He got a few receptions after Ayuk was injured. So yeah, other than double-digit win for 49ers, can't really see past that, to be honest. With as you say, without the Giants having Saquon there.
Yeah, sometimes when you not necessarily when you have primetime matches, but when you have certain matchups with players out, such like Barkley, Ayuk, there are sometimes you can maybe nab a bit of value quickly before kind of the bookies react a little bit. And Elijah Mitchell, especially with Kyle Shanahan's kind of notes, I think also in a game where it could potentially be a blowout and give us CMC that rest. I think Elijah Mitchell anytime he's 9-2 with Corals, or if you want to do it like a win cast type thing, Elijah Mitchell to score any time, and the 49ers to win at 5-1 is kind of my bet of Thursday night football. Liam, how do you see this game going? Anything different from kind of consensus?
No, not really. It wouldn't shock me if they did backdoor cover it, but I agree that I'm be favouring a double-digit win. I quite like the over, to be honest, because I do think the 49ers will score points. And I know they scored 0, but in general, Daboll and Kafka do draw up some good offensive plays, probably more around Daniel Jones rushing props, because I think he'll have to run the ball a lot, to be honest. So I do think the Giants can score some points, but I think their offensive line, I think left tackle's out as well, isn't he, for the Giants? So I do think so I do think they're going to get a lot of pressure. But yeah, so overall, I wouldn't be betting the spread because I don't just bet double digits once personally very often. But I do fancy the over. And then my best bet for it would be the 49ers over. So it's 27.5 in some places, but on Virgin Bet, you can get 26.5, and that's 10-11. And I just think they're going to score somewhere in that 27 to 35 range. So yeah, and I fancy the over 43.5 as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I like your thought there. I like your San Francisco over because I think I don't see them not scoring. It's and then you're not hoping or pinning your hopes on the Giants scoring. But yeah, it strikes me as like a 31-14 game or something around that line. So, which I think obviously, which not necessarily what the implied totals are, but the one thing with Andrew Thomas that you mentioned there, I just want to pick that up. The one thing I noted down as well is Daniel Jones's rushing yards. Can't remember who it's with, but that's 37.5. I don't know if you want to go over and under that. Probably over, I guess. But
over. Well, they only looked good when he started running the ball in the second half, didn't they, against the Cards? So if you've got your left tackle out, I feel like they're just going to make him run more. Because what they'll probably do is put him on like boots and roll out. So the idea isn't run; it's move left, move right to pass. But then when no one's open, he's just going to end up running. That's just what Daniel Jones does. So yeah, I love the over for him as well.
Yeah, lovely stuff. All right, that is Thursday night football. I won't be staying up to watch that one, and I certainly won't be staying up to watch Sunday night football, fellas, because this one could be contended for one of the worst Sunday night footballs of the year. The Vegas Raiders are -2.5 traveling to Pittsburgh. I had a double take. Is it Pittsburgh? That is right? Pittsburgh +2.5.
Yeah, that's right.
It's in Vegas, isn't it? It can't be a Pittsburgh.
Oh, is it? Oh, I've uploaded the wrong thing. It's the other way around. So yeah, Steelers are +2.5 at the Raiders. Over under there 42.5. But yeah, I mean, I don't care where you play this game. It's going to be absolute dog crap. But we got to pick something. We got to pick some bits of it. Anything that I picked up on last week was Jaylen Warren looked pretty good, and Najee Harris just looks like he's got cement blocks for boots. So. I couldn't find any props as it currently stands. I'll have a quick look what one of you two are talking. But Jaylen Warren props him maybe over receiving yards or anytime touchdown scorer is 15-8 or around the 2-1 area. I just have a feeling that Jaylen Warren could be one you could have a bit of an edge on for the next couple of weeks where they kind of split the backfield a little bit, but they're still pricing Najee Harris as kind of the workhorse. That's kind of anything that I had with this game. So I think Pittsburgh +2.5. Although, like I say, it's like picking like your two worst enemies, which ones to like be friends with. It's just I hate both of these teams. I don't like hate Jimmy G with a passion. Pittsburgh have been very very much underwhelming, and I'd probably go on the unders on this one as well at under 42.5. Liam, your thoughts on Sunday night football belter?
Yeah, exciting game. Warren also pretty good out of the backfield in terms of catches. So I'd be interested to see just what his receiving yard line is, or if they offer like a receiving and rush combined. I know Bet Victor sometimes offers both. Sky does as well, but that'll only be on Najee. They probably won't price Warren.
48.5 for rushing and receiving.
Who's that? How much?
Yeah, 48.5 on Bet365 for rushing and receiving.
Yeah, that's quite high.
28.5 for just rushing.
maybe they've realised that Najee Harris isn't the one. But yeah, that is higher than I thought.
Yeah.
In terms of this game overall, yeah, it's a terrible game. I've picked my best bet as Steelers plus 2.5 because I do believe in them much more than I do believe in the Raiders. I'd say the Steelers offense looks pretty awful. The Raiders offense looks pretty awful. The Raiders defense looks pretty awful, and the Steelers defense looks pretty great. So I'm kind of just going to go on the team that's got one side of the ball that I think's that's elite, to be honest. Highsmith and TJ Watt looked really, really good in the first 2 weeks. So they could score 10 points as a defense in terms of one touchdown and then one kind of short field. And I know the offense is bad, but I do think we're going to get a few of the kind of Pickens throw the ball up and get a few big plays. And if Devontae Adams isn't 100% healthy, I can't see Vegas doing that. So yeah, I'm going to go for Pittsburgh. I'll probably stay away from the total, but I know you guys both like under, which I think does make sense. But yeah, I'll go for Pittsburgh, but I definitely won't watch it live.
No, 15.5 receiving yards there. Adam's put in the chat there. So yeah, I will definitely be going over 15.5 receiving. Is it 15.5 receiving yards? Yeah, and 28.5 rush. I'd want that. Yeah, I'd have thought it'd be the other way around, but there we go.
Yeah, Jalen Warren, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Smash that over 15.5 for Jalen Warren. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, under 43 points is what I've put in the doc. I just had a quick look. The Raiders points is under 20.5. You can get just about plus money on that. I think I'd probably prefer that to the under 43 total, to be honest. So yeah, under 20.5 points for the Raiders. As Liam explained it perfectly, really. Three of the areas of this game are terrible, and the Steelers' defense is very, very good. So yeah, you've got to back on that side, really. I can't really see that much else happening, to be honest.
No, boring game. We'll move on swiftly on to again. I don't know why the NFL are carrying on with two Monday Night Football games. I don't. It's not I don't have an issue with the fact that they're obviously the kickoff times are close together. Or the fact that they've got two Monday Night Football games on. The thing that annoys me is they put the score in the corner of the other game, so that if you're watching the game in 40 or you're watching it back and and you don't want to know the other score, you're absolutely knackered. So like last week, I watched the first half of the Carolina, whatever it was, Saints game, and I got to the half time. Then I watched all of the Pittsburgh game, and then I didn't bother watching the second half of the Carolina. But it's just annoying. Like, just stop. Either have them back to back, or just don't show the score.
It should be back to back, but I think this is the last one, right, for a while. There's not one after this. I think it goes back to one, but they haven't picked two great games either. So.
Still, what do you mean the two? I'm quite looking forward to watching these two. To be fair, we'll start off then with the first one that Tampa Bay are hosting the somewhat underwhelming, I guess, Philadelphia Eagles. Although I say that, I think they're 2-0 against the spread this year. So can't be that bad, obviously. But here they are 4.5 point favourites as they travel to Raymond James. Over under here is at 45.5. Both teams 2-0, which probably wouldn't have predicted at the start of the season that both teams would be going in 2-0. But obviously Baker and Mike Evans have been doing some shake and bake stuff. So yeah, it should be an interesting test for Baker Mayfield. Could be one where he just kind of falls flat on his face. He's had his 2-game kind of honeymoon period, and kind of just not necessarily falls on the defense but I'm intrigued for a few reasons in this game. But I don't know about you, Adam.
Yes and no. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's not one I'll probably be watching. I actually do quite like watching the Eagles, but I don't really want to watch them in this one. I do have the Bucks +5 as my best bet from the Monday night. The Eagles were, I think, 6.5 against the Vikings, and I think the Bucks have beaten the Vikings already, and that was at the Eagles Stadium. So going on the road and having only a slightly different handicap, that's why I've gone for the Bucks +5 on this one. Not that much else behind it, to be honest. They seem to have had a decent enough defense and a decent enough offense, but they haven't played anyone of this level. So this could be a stark awakening for Baker Mayfield. He could end up taking a lot of sacks and throwing the ball away many times, as he does. But yeah, I didn't want to take anything in the Bengals game. So Bucks +5 is my bet for Monday night. For Monday night. Again, like I say, it should be interesting, but one that I won't be keeping too much attention on.
No, and I think for the first time this season we have a direct clash, because I think, Liam, you fancy the Eagles -5.
I do, yeah. I think this is the Mayfield disaster game that we could be seeing. Obviously, he's played two relatively good defenses in terms of playing against them is quite good. Lack of pass rush,
Easy.
which is when he's worse, is obviously under pressure. Eagles defense definitely looked worse than people thought, but I think that's more linebackers and safeties. They're still very good at just rushing the quarterback. That's their main thing. So yeah, I just think he's going to be under too much pressure, and the Eagles probably win by 7-10 points, somewhere along that line. I do think they need to improve on offense. They've definitely not looked very good at passing the ball compared to what we saw last season. But it could be very much an AJ Brown kind of long ball down the field type of game, because the Bucks defense does take a lot of risks. So yeah, I just fancy the Eagles to win. This is probably more bet against Baker Mayfield than anything else. But yeah, I think it could be a high scoring game, but I just think the Eagles will be too good.
Yeah, I've gone over. I do fancy Philly on the spread, and AJ Brown was my anytime touchdown scorer for the game. He obviously had one call back last week, and I think he was moaning a bit on the sideline as well that he's not as involved much. And generally, when your number one wide receiver or your star wideout has a bit of a moan, they kind of make, like DJ Moore last week. Not that he scored a touchdown, but they make a point of emphasis to shut him up. To be quite honest, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him to reach the end zone, because obviously he's not scored one yet this season. So, okay, the other game on Monday Night Football is the Rams traveling to the Bengals. Rams plus 2.5. Over under here is 43.5. Obviously, Joey B and his calf is turning into a bit of an Aaron Rodgers show, isn't it? It's just no one, no one cares. Well, obviously you care, Adam, because you're a Bengals fan, but it's just like it's turned on to a weekly saga that it just feels like getting via Aaron Rodgers vibes. But obviously Adam being the resident Bengals fan, for not necessarily fantasy football, but betting as well. If with his calf, you mentioned that he's not getting as much zip on the ball. I know T. Higgins had a couple of touchdowns last week, but are you a bit more apprehensive backing props for Chase and Higgins, or are you more likely to go unders, or are you just leaving it alone because you're not sure what the percentage of fitness that Joey B is coming into the game with, and does that mean anything for Joe Mixon?
Yeah, I don't think Burrow's going to be fit all season, frankly. And he seems like he's clearly having an issue, as you say, getting zip on the ball. He seems to be floating the passes a little bit. The O-line hasn't really gelled yet, which is an issue that they had at the start of last year, and coming up against Aaron Donald probably isn't going to help that. But yeah, it's one of those. This line was 7-8-ish for the Bengals before the Burrow aggravated his calf. It does look like he's going to play now. I'm not sure I really want him to. I think he could probably do with the week off, but he is in practice today. I've just seen the pictures of it. So he is practicing, which means he probably will go, which is a bit of a worry for me personally, but we will see on that one. Yeah, obviously, if he can't get the protection, if he can't go deep, then dump offs to Mixon and Irv Smith. I don't think Irv Smith has been particularly involved so far. I'll admit I've not managed to catch many of the games because I was driving back from Manchester last week. And obviously our first week was in Birmingham, but I've not seen Irv do too much. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a squeaky wheel gets the grease again, as you were saying before with AJB, that Jamar Chase gets a little bit more this week. But I'm not confident at all in covering 2.5 points against the Rams. I think Stafford and Puka will definitely by 1,000 cuts, kind of the Bengals, because I don't think they will be good enough to stop it in the first half, frankly. So yeah, it was a firm stay away from any betting types for me. But I guess dump offs to the running backs do make sense. Again, I haven't checked how many he gets, so it'll be interesting to see what you think on that one.
Yeah, Joe Mixon dump offs is one of my kind of what I'm trying to look for. I couldn't find any receptions for Joe Mixon. It's when I was putting all the documents together, but that's what I've kind of got in my sights. And again, it's another one where you think, start of the season, if you saw Cincinnati minus 2.5, you'd probably bite your hand off to take the 2.5. But the Rams, Liam, one of the most surprising teams so far.
Yeah, definitely, and especially from a Matt Stafford perspective. He's been one of the best quarterbacks so far in the league. I know he threw a couple of picks last week, but when you watch it back,
I think he's only been sacked once, hasn't he?
Yeah, and Van Jefferson is the reason why the pick was just... There's a reason why Puka and Atwell are getting so many targets, because every time he throws to Van Jefferson, Jefferson's just in the wrong place. And I think after that interception last week, Sean McVay was going nuts. So I'm definitely going to stay away from any no Van Jefferson props. But yeah, they played well. Even the defense looks okay. Like Byron Young, who they picked in the draft, he rushes next to Aaron Donald, and obviously it's easy when you rush next to Aaron Donald, but he's got a lot of pressure in this season for a 3rd or 4th round rookie. So yeah, I think they're playing pretty well. And like Adam said, really, for me, most things are kind of a stay away. So I've just looked at PFF's player prop tool, and they haven't got any Bengals props up in America either because of what's going on with Burrow. So for me, the only thing I was looking at was Rams team totals 20.5. So 3 touchdowns gets you there. I think that's a possibility, and that's evens on Sky Bet. So that'd be me over 20.5. Because then if Burrow plays and he plays well and Bengals win the game, there's still a chance that you're going to get Stafford throwing the ball 50 times to catch up. So yeah, I like that one. I hope Burrow plays to make the game entertaining, because I was going to stay up and watch this. And if Burrow doesn't play and you're on before the game, I'd just be trying to find unders all over the place if he doesn't end up playing, because the backup quarterback situation is not great for Cincinnati, as Adam probably knows better than me.
No,
Jake Browning doesn't seem like he's that good. Obviously, he beat out Brock Osweiler, but I'm not sure that's really anything to really hang out at.
Brock Lobster.
I would like to think they'd try and get Andy Dalton back in if it does turn out to be a long-term thing for Burrow, but it's the Bengals. I think they'll just suffer with what they've got.
Yeah, he's starting for Carolina this week by all accounts and whatever. But there we go. Yeah. So like I say, it's obviously very difficult. I'm actually surprised that generally they have everything off the board, don't they? When you've got such a high profile, well, any quarterback really. But obviously they've got up as much as they can. And it's generally, as you say, Rams props, but I'd maybe look at a Burrow to throw an interception type stuff, or let's say we also got here mixing rush attempts and receptions. So again, I don't have any indication of what lines are going to go for, what the numbers are, so I can't advise. If you got Mixon 2.5 over under receiving receptions, I'd probably go over 2.5, 3.5 maybe is too many, but if it's over under 2.5, go over 2.5 receptions. And again, I don't know what an interception price would be to throw an interception. So again, I can't advise.
The spread was 7.5 as well. So obviously, if you do think that the calf's getting better and stuff, obviously it's an easy bet, isn't it? But I just think after watching last week, people are just going to be scared away from it, aren't they? Because it did get down to 1 in some places. Now it's gone back up to 2.5. So it feels like people are just betting this game all over the place, I think.
Yeah, if I had to back something, I'd go Rams plus 2.5 over on the points, and for any time touchdown score, I'd be Kyren Williams, but because he's just obviously the trade of Cam Akers in the off season during the week to the Vikings. Kyren Williams, I think he's going to be one of those players that wins everyone their fantasy leagues, whoever got him in on waivers. So, okay, let's have a little reminder then of what our best bets were for Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. So Elijah Mitchell anytime touchdown 9-2, Juwan Jennings anytime touchdown 7-2, and 49ers over 26.5 points for tonight's game. For Sunday, Jaylen Warren anytime 11-5. Although as I said earlier, over 15.5 receiving yards is a smash play for me personally. Under 43.5 points for Adam, and then Steelers plus 2.5 for Liam. And then Monday Night Football, I've not obviously got a price on Mixon over receptions, but obviously I can't. That's what I fancy, so I'll plug something in there when it happens. And then head-to-head, Adam and Liam between the Bucks and the Philly, so -5. So we know what's going to happen. It's going to be a 5-point. It's going to be a 5-point Philadelphia win, isn't it? So there we go. Let's move over to the main games then on Sunday. We'll start off obviously with the handicaps like we normally do there, or running across the bottom of your screen there. Adam, start with you. Maybe do you want to pick out your favourite, and also any other considerations that you had for spreads?
I was struggling a little on spreads this week again, but I've landed on the Falcons +3 at Detroit. The Lions have got Detroit. The Lions got quite a few injuries. Obviously, Chancey CJGJ's out for the season by the sound of it. There was David Montgomery's probably missing this one, so they're going to be going with Jahmyr Gibbs and probably Craig Reynolds in running game, which doesn't help them there. It could be a Gibbs blow-up game, but I've been very impressed with the Falcons, what they've put on film so far. They know what they want to do, and they've been doing it well. Desmond Ridder might not be the most elite of passers, but he knows how to. He seems like he knows how to run this Falcons offense quite well. He's obviously been scrambling himself. You've got Bijan, who's looking every bit worth the pick that they paid for him. Algier is a very good RB2/1B. So yeah, I just think the Falcons have got a decent enough chance to come in and cause a bit of an upset here. Obviously, St. Brown is banged up from last week as well, so it's just a few injuries on the Lions side. Goff has now broken that injury streak. I don't think the Falcons will get pressure, which is my main worry on it, but I had to pick a spread, and this was frankly the best one I could find.
Yeah, the Atlanta Detroit game, it feels like, and we'll get to total points in a minute, but that feels like that's a game everyone's going to pile into the overs because they're. But I just really like the unders in that one, like with the injuries and whatnot. I just think defenses will have a bit of an edge on that game. But I say we'll get to totals in a minute. But Liam, obviously, Kansas City minus 12.5, the biggest handicap of the week. There are a couple of double-digit ones. Obviously, San Francisco tonight. Dallas is now also 12.5, although it was 11.5 yesterday even this morning when I was doing this. Yeah, but what do you like from a spread standpoint?
Yeah, there's a few as well. Like Jags are now 8.5, so it just gets you past that 7. So there's a few kind of spreads that I don't love. Falcons was one of my options, and then my other two that I was considering were Packers minus 1.5 against the Saints, because I do think that their offense and offensive line will be too good for the Saints. That's kind of all the Saints have done really, is rush the passer, and I don't think they're going to have as good of a shot against Green Bay. I wanted to go Minnesota -1, but I've made a pledge to myself to not bet on Kirk Cousins because I did it loads of times last season. It did actually help last season, but for years before it never did. But I think the Vikings might win that game. But the one I've gone for is Patriots minus 2.5. It was 3. It's gone down to 2.5, which I like because I don't get that push from a field goal. Zach Wilson's EPA per play is the worst in NFL history against Bill Belichick. Averages over 2 interceptions every time he plays them. I just feel like Mac Jones is playing better than I thought. The offense isn't great, but I think they can do enough to win this awful game by a field goal. I just think Zach Wilson might give the Patriots 2 touchdowns, to be honest, by some point. So I was surprised it wasn't 3.5. So I've got to take it if it's less than a field goal.
Yeah, lovely stuff. A couple of I've got in consideration here. Miami minus 6.5 against Denver. I'm not overly sure. I've got 7.5 on there, but for some reason I've got 6.5 on my thing here. So I don't know if that line's changed as well. But yeah, even if it is 7.5, I'd maybe pay to pay the odds a little bit to get it to 7 or 6.5. I'm not overly convinced by Denver. I'm not quite sure. If it was in Denver, it'd be a different story. But Miami are a different level to Denver, and I'm not convinced they've fixed all of their issues. I mean, like, you just watch their games. That Russell Wilson's still a bit done, and it took were they the Hail Mary team last week?
Yeah, and then they didn't get the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
going nuts. Typical Russ.
Yeah, Miami, and like I say, Mostert in the run game. Denver's defense is okay, but I just think Miami will just wipe the floor with Denver, and they're not a good team. Dallas, I think, will absolutely annihilate Arizona, and I say it's obviously gone from 11.5 to 12.5. But and the other two were Buffalo minus 6.5. Again, I just think they'll win by a touchdown. I can't remember who they play. I can't remember who they're playing now.
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo.
They're playing Washington, Buffalo.
Oh, Washington. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, my notes are a bit mixed up here. Buffalo against Washington again. Washington. I fancy that one. I know there are a few storms on the East Coast kind of predicted. I'd actually really fancied the over in that one because I think that could be just a lot of offense in that game. But yeah, I think Buffalo kind of showed themselves who they were last week against the Raiders. So, and then finally, one that I really like, especially as Anthony Richardson is not looking likely to go, Baltimore minus 6.5 at home against the Colts. I think I don't understand why it's 6.5. I think Baltimore will just gobble up Indianapolis, and especially if it's Gardner Minshew. I know we get some Minshew mania, Minshew magic, or whatever you want to call it, but Baltimore, I think, are way better than 6.5 against the Colts. With, even if Minshew's playing, let's say they've got no. Well, Zach Moss obviously had a decent game last week, but again, in terms of talent, I think that Baltimore defenses will more than handle Indianapolis Colts. There we go. That's handicap.
8.5. It's 8.5, by the way, in America as well. So, like, to get 6.5 over here is good.
Yeah,
really good.
I had it as over a touchdown, so makes sense. Okay, let's move over to total points. Then let's say the highest over is 54. I think that's one of the highest we've seen so far this year. And overs in general made a big comeback last week, whereas week one obviously it was all unders. So, Liam, where are you looking for your totals?
I'd love to go over that 54 because I think it could be a 70-point game, but
Yeah,
it never seems to go that way when we have these games that we all think are going to happen like that. So I wanted to go over 43 in the Bills Commanders game, but like you mentioned, there are storms at the moment that's potentially affected. So that will kind of be a wait and see on the day what it looks like, because the other games that it could affect is Colts Ravens, which is 44. I think under 44 is a good play on that game. And then the game I've already bet, which is Patriots Jets 36.5. That underplay is good there, but I didn't want to bet two bets on that one game. So I've gone against what you said earlier, which is over 46.5 in the Lions Falcons game. I don't think the Lions will be able to stop the run at all. So I think the Falcons will score points. And I think Jared Goff will be able to throw the ball all over the place, no matter who it is too, just because he's got a good OC. And it could be to the other team, but then I might get a pick six score. So yeah, I fancy 50 plus points in that game. So I've got over 46.5. But yeah, on the day, if the storms aren't too bad, then over 43 in Washington is probably the best bet for me. But at the moment, I'm going to have to say Lions Falcons because of the weather.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with the Buffalo Washington. That's my favourite out of all of them. That absolutely stood out to me. Yeah, no, I like the unders in the Atlanta Detroit game. I just don't think. I think with all the injuries, I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown would do very much. And Falcons are generally quite slow playing. I can't remember the graph, the thing that I saw, but
They are slow, yeah.
Their pace is very slow, and if they're running the ball, they're taking 5, 6, 7 minute drives. And then that limits the number of drives that each team has. And with the Detroit Lions maybe struggling with David Montgomery out, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he's got turf toe, he's got a bit of turf toe or something like that. So I know Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond kind of somehow do something in that team for Jared Goff. It's just kind of that lightning in a bottle thing. So if they went elsewhere, they'd be dog crap. But I just don't. I'm not overly convinced that they'll get to 46 in that one. And then, like I say, the other one was Baltimore, Indianapolis, but with the Anthony Richardson stuff, unders does look the play there as well. Adam?
Yeah, I've gone for the Dolphins again. I went for them in week 1. Interesting that Liam's gone for the Falcons 3 weeks in a row for overs. I've gone for Dolphins versus Broncos. I went for them over 51 in week 1 against the Chargers. Obviously, that flew over. I went for them to win on the handicap last week. That was easy. And I think Dolphins versus Broncos over 48.5. It's actually quite a high total, but the Broncos have shown that they are fairly inept at a lot of things. But they did manage to unleash a couple of deep shots last week. They got them ahead in the game. I don't think they'll do that this week, but I do think they can easily concede 30 points to the Dolphins. So, I've gone for Dolphins over 48.5. It's the Denver's first road trip of the year as well, going down to the heat of Miami. So that's going to be a bit of a shock for them. So I think 30 points for the Dolphins. Get to 20-ish for Broncos, then I'm happy with my over 48.5.
Just saw a tweet that Amon-Ra St. Brown returned to practice today as well, so maybe he's not too limited as maybe we think he is. But I heard someone branding around turf toe a little bit, but who bloody knows these days. Okay, let's for final. Oh well, we've got a couple more. We can do TD scorers and any props that anyone particularly likes. Touchdown scorers. Joshua Kelly, I think after last week's disappointment, will absolutely eat this week in a game. Like I say, I think that could be a 70-pointer. I didn't mention it on the totals, but I do like the over 54 because those two teams just either always try and lose the game, so there's obviously loads of fourth quarter lead changes, so that obviously usually means a lot of points. Joshua Kelly, Isaiah Pacheco, seems like an Isaiah Pacheco game against the Bears this week. Tony Pollard, I think he's about 8 to 11. If you can get anything, 8 to 11 I think was the best I found with very few bookies, because there's not many bookies out there that has all the games. But if you can get anything like a 5 to 6 or 10 to 11, smash Pollard, because that's just going to be absolute feast. And then maybe even have a look at Rico Dowdle. He was best price 9 to 4, and then Deuce Vaughn. It sounds like it'll probably be a Deuce Vaughn game as well if we're in the blowout. So any time where you think there might be a blowout like tonight, you always look for the second and third running backs, because you're always trying to get a bit of value there. And then a longer shot, so Roschon Johnson as well. Again, might be a blowout in Kansas City, so they'll give Roschon Johnson some maybe late third, fourth quarter stuff against the Chiefs. So they're kind of where I've looked for touchdown scorers. Adam?
I went with Roschon Johnson last week and he didn't do much, but I read a tweet earlier today saying that he's going to take over the backfield sooner rather than later. So we'll see what happens with that one. But obviously all the commotion around the Bears this week, I'm staying away from him this time. I'm going to go for your boy Bijan Robinson. I know you've mentioned him the other first 2 weeks. He's still plus money, 21 to 20 to score in a game, which I think is going to be high scoring, and obviously Liam does so. And also in that game is Craig Reynolds for the Lions. I don't think Gibbs will be the basher. I think Craig Reynolds will probably be the basher. There isn't a price on him at the moment, but I'd imagine probably 3-1 plus. I'll be happy to go with him for my slightly longer shot. And frankly, because of the lack of everything and because I've been driving up there, they're the only two that I managed to put on my list today.
I did see some Craig Reynolds ones. I'll see if I can find
Yeah.
it. Liam, what do you reckon?
You might have seen Josh Reynolds. I didn't see any Craig Reynolds.
Yeah, I'm with you actually on the trying to find a scorer in the Vikings Chargers game because it's going to be a high-powered offense, bad defense type of game. So I was in between Gerald Everett at 74 and Keenan 65. I've chose Keenan and 65. He's been getting a lot of targets. He leads like target share for wide receivers at the moment in the end zone. And then a couple more to mention was Jake Ferguson for the Cowboys. He has more targets in the end zone than any player in the NFL. I think his odds aren't going to be great, but I haven't had a chance to check, to be honest. But that'll be one that I chuck in an accumulator or a Trixie or something, just as one that I think that might happen. And then the last one, which is slightly against what you said, I do not think Isaiah Pacheco will play on Sunday.
Oh, do you not? Okay, ignore that.
I don't think so. But they're pricing him up like he might play. So I'm probably going to do the blasphemy and bet the worst running back in the NFL and bet CEH to score a touchdown because Jerick McKinnon has not looked great, unfortunately. So I do not think they're going to want to add yardage to him in the red zone and get smashed and get potentially injured whilst he's still getting up to pace. So yeah, I might probably bet CEH to score. And if Pacheco doesn't play, they'll probably make LaMichael P. Ryan active as well, which would be a fun one because that might be 6 or 7 to 1 as the third running back. But yeah, I'll try and find some sort of Kansas City backup running back prices when they're out.
Yeah, Jake Ferguson was 7 to 4, bet 365. That's the only place I looked, and Skybet don't have anything up yet. So
that's not bad when you're leading for the team and the league in that red zone.
7 red zones, wasn't it? 7 red zone targets. I think it was 5 the next one. They did try and obviously Schoonemaker or whatever his name is scored last week, and
they tried to do Hendershot as well, didn't they? I think
I was going to say the other guy.
Yeah, I think he had a red zone target as well.
Yeah, I bet I'm just going to make a week 1. Decided against it week 2, and then he gets a touchdown. So I'm off Schoonemaker for now. I'm off.
Schoon. I don't know what price the Dallas Cowboys defense is either to score a touchdown, but that's probably around 3 to 1, 7 to 2, like it was last week. So
Pats was 7 to 2, so it'd be similar to that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. I don't know if any of you guys have looked at props, but a couple of that I looked at were Pollard over 74.5 rushing yards, Kelsey over 71.5 receiving yards. Didn't know if I don't know your thoughts on Kelsey for this week, whether or not he'll be kind of a full go if he's still just kind of managing stuff. But yeah, I couldn't find any. I'm also interested in some receiving props for the Lions, which I couldn't find at the moment for Gibbs and Laporta, because like I say, if Amon-Ra is a bit dinged up, and obviously there's no David Montgomery, not that he gets many receptions anyway, but especially if Amon-Ra is out, I think this is kind of the game where Gibbs will kind of not necessarily get everything. And I mentioned you mentioned Adam, he's not going to be the banger. He's not going to be the banger, but I think that they may force him a few more touches, Gibbs, through the air and whatnot. So I don't know what his reception lines or receiving yards are, but I think I'm quite interested in that this week. And Laporta seems to always get quite a few targets and a bit of yardage as well. So
yeah, I've had a look at a couple. Maybe it's because the offense hasn't been great in the first couple of weeks, but I'm going to do my traditional Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns because, like I said, if you bet it every week when it's plus money, you make a fortune. So I just do it every week that's plus money. And he's he's just over evens against a team I think that's not going to be very good. So, I like that one. Amon-Ra has 6.5 receptions at the moment. He was 7.5 last week. So I am going to probably bet that. And then if he doesn't play, obviously you get the void bet, so you get your stake back. So that's another one. And you can't find them in the UK, but if you can find any quarterback carries anywhere, if you've got a VPN or maybe like one of these that lets you pick them, you can get plus money on Brock Purdy and Mac Jones to have less than 2.5 carries at the moment in the States. So last week you could do that on BetVictor. So I'm going to see if I can try and find that because there's no way Mac Jones is having more than 2.5 carries in a game. That just seems stupid. So.
Yeah. Would you, if you get news that Amon Ra's a bit dinged up and he's going to be on snap count, would you do under for receptions?
I'd probably do over Sam Laporta, to be honest. Whatever.
Yeah. And would you
whatever number that is,
would you do
I
any
think-
unders on the Stormy games?
I was looking at some of the numbers, and like Gabe Davis is 2.5 receptions.
Yeah.
They're quite low.
Yeah.
I almost think they're preparing for that. So potentially any under, I think, for New York Jets, like Alan Lazard, I think is 3.5 receptions. I would go under Lazard on 3.5. I'd probably go under Juju at 3.5 as well in the same game. So yeah, those games I'd stay away from Bills Washington, because I feel like even in a storm, Josh Allen might just start saying F it and throwing it against the wind and in the storm. But yeah, that Pats Jets game, there's some unders on receivers there.
Josh Allen was see it as a kind of a challenge, wouldn't he? Like, he's going into the wind. Can he still throw the full length of the field? And then sort it like Gabe Davis. Just run.
Tyreek Hill, by the way, 6.5 receptions. I like that as an over. He was 7.5 in week 1. I don't know why he's 6.5 in week 3, but maybe it's because Denver have got Surtain, maybe, I guess. But it feels like if they win the game, he's going to have more than 6.5, because even those little passes out to the backfield still count as a reception. So
they do indeed. All right, let's get out of here. But before we do, just a reminder of the best handicap total points and TD scores that we've got. So for handicaps, for some reason I've got there Dallas 11.5. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that during. Oh, yes, I did. Baltimore minus 6.5 as well, as if Anthony Richardson goes. But yeah, Dallas minus 11.5 for me. Atlanta +3. New England minus 2.5 for Liam. Total points I've got here over 43.5. Washington Buffalo, which obviously Liam liked as well. But yeah, just be wary of the storm. Then keep track of the weather on that one. Adam over 48.5. Miami versus Denver, and Liam's pivoted to over 46.5. Atlanta Detroit. Touchdown scorers: Joshua Kelly 5-6 for the Chargers. Bijan Robinson at plus money there, 21-20 for the Falcons. And then to round us off is Keenan Allen for the Chargers. We obviously like the Chargers, don't we, in this one? So 6-5 there for that one. There we go. I did have a look around. Brian Robinson over 9.5 receiving yards. That is pretty low.
yeah,
He had 23, I think. 40 yards last week, but it was only on 2 receptions and 7 yards on 1 reception the week before.
Hey,
And
I would put it back over 9.5. If you guaranteed me he would get 1 reception, I would still probably back the. I would probably still back the over.
They don't seem to be giving Antonio Gibson much at all, which makes someone trading for him in one of our leagues a little bit laughable. But and CJ Stroud over to 235 passing yards. He's gone over that in both games. He hit 384 last week, admittedly against the Colts, who are terrible. But I don't think the Jags defense is as high as people seem to be rating it. So CJ Stroud, they're probably going to be behind significantly again, so they're probably going to be passing again. So I thought that was a decent line as well.
There we go. Week 3 is, let's say, starting tonight with the Giants and San Francisco. Good luck with all your bets out there if you are gambling. And obviously, golden rule of gambling, make sure you bet responsibly. But yeah, say good luck. Thanks to Adam. Hope you have a nice time in Havar, mate. Hope the weather does well. Get a good bit of weather for you out there. And then we'll talk about it all again next week. Yeah, good luck with all your bets. But gamble responsibly, and we'll see you next week.